Hello and welcome to Miniature Adventures. I'm Big Lee, and this week I want to talk about time limits in our games, getting a move on. Now I imagine we've all experienced the player who seems to take forever to make a move. This is the opponent who seems to consider every move like a chess grandmaster, stroking their chin, furrowed brow, while game time ticks past relentlessly. And while they work through every permutation, everyone else is waiting to start the next phase of the game. It's a familiar scene, and one that often prompts the same sort of question. Should we be putting time limits on decision making in tabletop wargames? Of course, the answer often depends on the type of game. A competition game will likely have a specific structure in place to keep things moving, with time allocations enforced by the rules or a referee. I'm guessing, of course, because I've never done competition games, but they don't seem like the sort of setting that would countenance time wasting. What about friendly games on the dining room table, or one played at a club where the end of the evening is likely marked by the caretaker jingling the keys? Even outside of tournaments, time pressures do exist, so should we consider introducing informal time limits even in casual games? Now, before I address this, it's also worth mentioning that we need to differentiate between time taken to make tactical decisions and time spent trying to figure out a new set of rules or getting a ruling from an umpire. If everyone taking part has previously played a rule set, delays due to unfamiliarity are likely to be a lot less common. But excessively complex rule sets, or even overly simple rules with lots of vague and contradictory elements, can keep players guessing and arguing for many games. Learning the game should never be penalised, in my opinion, because eventually it leads to better games and nuanced play. Time spent on decision making, however, is another matter. So there is something to be said for keeping things moving. While time limits may feel restrictive at first, they are often a way of respecting everyone's time. Most club nights, casual meetups or home games have some kind of limit, whether that's a shared school night, somebody needing to catch a train, or just the practicalities of tidying up before dinner. A battle that never gets close to a conclusion can leave everyone feeling a little bit flat, and sometimes momentum is all that stands between a thrilling final turn and a game that simply peters out. There's also the matter of what I call analysis paralysis. This is where too much thinking can be a problem in itself. Given an open field of options, a player may find themselves stuck trying to decide the best course of action, weighed down by the worry of making a mistake. That can be especially true when there is no obvious right answer, or when the options are all equally risky. It's understandable. Most of us like to imagine ourselves as bold commanders with a clear vision and strong instincts, but when faced with a difficult turn, even the most confident player can grind to a halt. Time limits, even informal ones, can help cut through the hesitation. They encourage decisive play and keep the tempo up. When the pace is maintained, energy and engagement often stay high. Long pauses have a way of breaking immersion. One moment you are deep in the fog of war, weighing up the enemy's next move, and the next you're checking your phone and chatting about something unrelated, or drifting out of the scenario altogether. It doesn't take long for a table to fall quiet, not with tension, but with the sense that no one is quite sure when the game will resume. Quicker turns keep everyone involved and focused. They allow the narrative of the game to unfold without long stretches of waiting. But of course, this isn't the full picture. There is a strong argument to be made against imposing time limits in friendly games, especially when the hobby is meant to be a space for enjoyment rather than pressure. For many of us, a casual wargame is a chance to relax and unwind. It's not a test of nerves or reflexes, and no one wants to feel rushed while they try to enjoy their evening. Introducing even gentle time limits can change the tone of a game, particularly for players who are still learning the rules or naturally more methodical in their approach. Some games, by their very nature, demand careful planning. Systems like Chain of Command, Blucher or Hail Caesar reward thoughtful play. The mechanics are designed to simulate complex battlefield decisions, and rushing those decisions can diminish the experience. Tactical depth is part of the appeal, and for many players that includes time spent puzzling out how best to handle a tricky situation. In narrative-driven games, the story unfolds partly through the choices made and how they are executed. If those moments are hurried, the richness of the scenario can be lost. And of course, there's also the social aspect to consider. Part of the joy of our hobby is simply being with other people who share our interest, chatting, joking, pausing to discuss the game. These aren't distractions from the game necessarily. They're part of the reason we do it in the first place. A bit of banter, the occasional tangent, or some friendly back and forth about the best course of action all contribute to the atmosphere. If everyone becomes too focused on efficiency, something can be lost. It's meant to be a shared experience, not a race. So if the answer is not a simple yes or no, maybe the question becomes, how can we balance the need for pace with the desire for a relaxed and social game? A few gentle nudges may be all that is needed. A light-hearted, shall we keep it moving, or a quiet reminder that time is ticking can often do the trick without upsetting anyone. Most people appreciate a little prompt, especially if it's delivered in the right spirit. Being flexible is the key. The aim is not to enforce a rule, but to keep things enjoyable for everyone. Of course, some groups will agree on informal house rules. That might mean setting a rough guideline like 3 minutes per phase, or agreeing a particular part of the game will be timed. It might involve using a phone timer or a small hourglass to keep things ticking along. I've done that myself for some games, especially role-playing games. Some players even go further, introducing chess clocks or awarding bonuses for speedy play. None of this needs to be strict or unyielding. The important thing is that everyone knows what to expect and everyone has agreed to it in advance. Another way to avoid time-related frustration is to choose games that suit the amount of time you have available. If you know you only have 2 hours, then setting up a huge Napoleonic game with dozens of units on each side might not be the best idea. A smaller game, like sharp practice or a quick skirmish, can deliver just as much drama and satisfaction without requiring the same investment of time. Fast playing rule sets are often more forgiving when time is tight. That does not mean sacrificing depth. Many smaller games offer rich tactical decisions and immersive narratives without slowing to a crawl. It's also worth thinking about the structure of the scenario. Some games build time pressures into the scenario itself. Objectives must be reached by a certain turn, or reinforcements will arrive at a fixed point regardless of player speed. These types of mechanics can naturally encourage timely decision making without needing to rely on clocks or timers. They also keep the game feeling dynamic and reactive. There's a growing trend towards games that are designed to be completed within a set time frame, which helps groups fit a satisfying experience into an evening, for instance. And of course, every group is different. Some players enjoy long, thoughtful games with detailed planning and in-depth discussion. Others prefer fast-moving games with cinematic moments and constant action. Some groups might meet regularly and can pick up a game across multiple sessions. Others only have limited opportunities to get together and want to complete a game in a single sitting. It all comes down to what kind of experience you're trying to create together. So time limits are not a rule. They are just one of the many tools that we can use to shape the kind of game we want to play. If they help make the experience more enjoyable, then they have value. If they cause more stress than they solve, then maybe they're not needed. The important thing is to talk about it. A quick chat before the game starts can help set expectations and avoid misunderstandings. Everyone should feel like they're being heard, whether they are quick to decide or like to think things through carefully. So what do you do in your games? Do you play in a club where time is limited, or at home where you can take a bit longer? Have you ever agreed on a time limit with your opponent, or introduced a little friendly pressure to keep the game moving along? Are you one of those relaxed players who is just as happy chatting about the latest rulebook as you are moving troops across the table? There's no single right answer, but the conversation is always worth having. In the end, the goal is shared enjoyment. Whether that comes from quick decisions or careful deliberation, it's up to you and your group to decide together. So time for a hobby update. On Monday evening, the Rejects swapped our usual paint and chat session for a historical wargame with Jonathan Freitag, this time recreating the Battle of Quistello from the War of the Polish Succession. Now, if you follow John's blog, the Police Wargaming Journal, you'll know that we only got the game half finished on Monday, and we will be gathering online again tomorrow to bring this fight to a conclusion. I'm on the Austrian side in this game, and I think we had a tough time crossing the River Secha. It took until turn 3 for us to gain a toehold on the opposing bank, and only at the close of turn 4 did it feel like we'd some momentum on our side. That being said, I think the Austrian victory objectives still look a little ambitious. And of course everything can change on a few dice rolls. Hopefully by next weekend I'll be reporting back on an Austrian win, but in all likelihood I think the best we can realistically hope for is a hard-fought draw. What I do know for certain is that part 2 of the game will be hotly contested on both sides. So we've got time for a very quick Workbench update. My Mongols, proxies for the Kalmyk tribesmen in Russian service in 1812, have been assembled, primed, prepped, and the first steps of painting have begun. I'm feeling quite inspired by these models, so I'm looking forward to how they turn out. I've been gathering pictures and artwork so I can find anything I can find online really to guide my painting, and I will of course report back on my progress, and a lot depends on how much time I can get over the done over the workbench over the weekend, so I will report back on that next week. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the topic, and as always please join the conversation in the comments below, and of course if you enjoyed the video please like, subscribe and share. So until next week, stay safe, keep gaming, and of course keep rolling high.